What's up, everybody? Welcome to S.W.A.T MMA, where we're smoking weed and talking mixed martial arts. I'm Jarrod. I'm here with Paul.
What up?
We're coming to you from the fight capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada. This is episode number 80, and today we're going to be smoking and talking all about the results of UFC 254, which saw Khabib utterly destroy Justin Gaethje, which will also bring about an in-depth discussion about exactly who we feel is the pound-for-pound greatest fighter of all time. We're also going to talk about the UFC's return to Las Vegas on the upcoming fight night Halloween, and that fight is headlined by Anderson Silva versus Uriah Hall in Silva's retirement bout. Now, before we get into all of those great fights, we are going to get started with our weed of the week.
Smoke weed every day.
All right, this week we are smoking on one type of concentrate and two different kinds of flower. Paul is hitting that beautiful dab rig right now as I speak with that same purple punch from last week, so I'm not going to get too into that. We are also smoking on some Papa OG left over from last week, but we have added a new flower to the mix today, Paul. We're going to get into some Cheesequake here in just a few minutes. Now, Cheesequake is a hybrid created by the Dank, which was formerly known as TGA Subcool Seeds. Subcool was selling seeds underground for like 20 years. He originally created this strain, which is a cross of cheese and Quirkle. Quirkle, Paul, one of my favorites. Purple Urkel crossed with Space Queen. The cheese is a little bit more mysterious on its origins. It was originally thought to be a skunk number 1 phenotype. And then over the years, another breeder whose name I forget at the moment added some Afghani to it in order to kind of boost up that trichome. But together, they make Cheesequake, which we're going to be hitting up here as well. Now, I hit that dab rig before you. I am good on that. I got a cone here with the Papa's OG and one with the Quirkle, or excuse me, the Cheesequake. I'm going to go with this one. I don't know which one it is. I'm going to grab this bong. And man, folks, if you missed it, we had a pretty good UFC event here this past weekend.
Yep.
The final pay-per-view from this most recent stretch out in Abu Dhabi, headlined by, of course, Khabib Nurmagomadov's title fight against Justin Gaethje.
I mean, if that's what you want to call it.
Well, let's be honest here. We both predicted Gaethje last week, you know, because we're fans. We're not the biggest fans, personally, of Khabib, although we both respect his skill set. That was a disappointment, man. He just mowed through him.
Yeah, he beat
Second round submission, in case you somehow missed it. Yeah.
Wasn't much of a fight at all.
No, first round contested mainly on the feet, in which Gaethje looked surprisingly terrible.
Yeah, it was
and
just
Khabib
exchanges.
looked good.
Yeah.
When I saw that going that way on the feet, I was like, oh no.
Yeah.
That's not good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Gaethje was winging wild punches from way outside that were nowhere near hitting the mark. And Khabib's firing actually pretty decent 1-2 combos.
Well, you just hit him right down the middle because Gaethje was so overreach with all his
way overextended winging stuff.
Yeah.
And Khabib didn't even have to slip. He was throwing a lot of stuff from the outside. Now, he did land a few decent leg kicks.
Mm-hmm.
After the fight, Justin was saying he felt Khabib was 1 or 2 leg kicks away from losing the fight and being done. I think that's absurd.
That's crazy.
I mean, he wasn't even limping.
No.
I mean,
no.
yes, Justin has an incredibly strong lower calf kick, but
no,
that wasn't a factor in the fight.
No.
I didn't see anything Justin did, unfortunately, be a factor in that fight.
No. He looked terrible.
Out of, all of the, not all, he's had the fight against Conor and the fight against Poirier and now the fight against Gaethje. Talking about Khabib here. Those are all 3 elite level guys, and Gaethje got beat the quickest and the most decisive, which is not what I expected at all.
No, not at all.
I'm glad I decided not to bet this fight.
Yeah.
The reason I didn't is I saw his interview with Megan O'Leary
O'Leary.
O'Leary. I don't know why I was want to say Megan O'Leary. I don't know why.
That's another. I think it's another person in the media's name.
Is it? Is that where
think
that
so.
comes from in my head? I don't know.
I think so.
But
I'm not quite sure though.
I thought he sounded just sick. And so that was the morning I was going to go place the bet. Now, I don't think he was.
Yeah,
I think I was mistaken because he's always kind of nasally, but like he coughed a little bit and then he sounded hoarse. And I was like, ooh, I'm not going to go bet this. That sounds like you're fighting a cold. Again, I don't think he was. Not saying that it had anything to do with the fight. I think I was reading something that wasn't there, but hey, it saved me $100. So
one thing I do want to bring up real quick though is this. I don't know if it's a miscalculation or just like something that had to maybe do with the COVID, but if you're Justin Gaethje, man, you need to get out to Abu Dhabi way earlier than a week before.
yeah, he arrived out less than 2 weeks before the fight, right?
Like way more than a week.
This
before.
is a very
Come on,
different
man.
climate.
This is different
than here in the United States.
Yeah, we're talking 75% humidity when they're stepping in the octagon on Saturday night. And yeah, that arena, it's not 100% outdoors, but the atmosphere of somewhere like that is just different. You know what I mean? The climate, the air you breathe every day is just different. You know what I mean?
And then you've got a dramatic time.
He
shift
just looked
as well.
flat. He looked flat. Like he got. When have we ever seen Gaethje tired after a round? He was gassed after round
I
one.
couldn't believe how tired he was after the first round. He went back to his corner huffing and
Yeah.
puffing. Now, part of that's due to a lot of the wild blows he was throwing, but Gaethje,
Doesn't
it's
get-
not like this is the first time he's ever
Yeah,
thrown wild.
say he's throwing a lot more wild than that. Well, here's the problem: is he wasn't setting anything up either. He was just kind of going for shit. And another thing I do want to bring up is like this, because of this. I don't know how to word this correctly.
Well, you
Make it
figured out how
sound
to
like-
hit this cheese quick again, which
like-
tastes pretty good, by the way.
I don't want to sound like an asshole here, but everybody tries to stop everything that Khabib's good at. Nobody tries to do what they're good at against Khabib.
Yeah, that's an interesting observation. What did you see that, or how did you see Justin falling into that trap?
Because Justin, like, okay, so I get it. Justin was trying to stop the takedowns and the wrestling and everything. But if you watch that fight at the beginning, he damn near came out like in a wrestling stance. Like when he like was starting the fight and as the fight went along, he was like in like a square stance, hunched a little bit, like just waiting for the takedown. And I feel like that was a big reason why Khabib was able to kind of walk him down and land a lot of the shots, because Justin was so worried about being out of position against him in the wrestling aspects that I feel like Khabib surprised him with his wantingness and willingness to strike with him.
It surprised me.
Yeah.
I thought Khabib won that first round. There's some people saying that Justin
Yeah,
did.
I
I
did
see that 2 of the 3 judges gave it to Justin, but I thought Khabib won it pretty handily. I thought he got the better of the striking exchanges.
And
He
then took him
technically
down.
landed more blows, and then he got a takedown at the end that was extremely dominant.
And a submission attempt at the end too.
Yeah, I didn't really.
I don't see how.
I don't see how you score that for Gaethje. And keep in mind, on this podcast here, we're fan base. Like, we don't have any obligation to just say. Like, I like Justin Gaethje. I've met him. He's cool as fuck. I can't stand Nurmagomedov. Like, I really wanted him to lose here. So we're not just shitting on Justin Gaethje. Like, I think it's a pretty honest assessment.
Yeah.
You know, it is what it is.
It is what it is. Like,
And I think when you talk about this fight, honesty and looking at reality is really important. And we're going to get into that in a minute. Because of this fight, there's all this talk about the pound for pound great. And we're going to get into that. But keeping a look at reality and being honest is very important in that discussion as well. And dude, Khabib won the first round. He tooled Justin up as far as I could tell on the feet. I didn't see those leg kicks doing any damage. And I don't think that counts really as a round that Khabib lost in my mind.
no, I still think he's only lost that third round to Conor.
Yeah, he lost the third round to Conor McGregor. And surprisingly, out of all the elite fighters that Khabib has faced, Conor's loss looks better and better with time. He did better than Dustin, and he did better than Gaethje.
I disagree. I think Dustin's performances as of right now stands as the best performance against Khabib.
He didn't
was
win
a
any
close-
rounds, and
He didn't, but he
Choked out
did.
in the
I don't
third.
understand how he doesn't win the round that he almost finishes him in, and then it goes into the round. Like, yeah, he was taken down, but like he got took down into a guillotine that almost ended the fight.
This is true.
Like, let's be honest here.
You're right. Just keep it with reality.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think Conor overall did better, but that's fine. That's fair. I can see an argument for Justin.
Well, I just
as
feel
well.
like in the Dustin fight, I feel like Dustin was a lot more in the fight than Justin Gaethje ever was, and Conor reestablished himself in the fight. But if you watch in that first round, it was pretty boring in the first round of Conor Khabib. Like if you go back and watch that fight, it's like the first round was Khabib trying to take Conor down, and then like with a minute left, he finally gets Conor down, and then like kind of just stays there. And then the second round when he drops Conor, I think that's what separates Dustin and Conor's performances is Conor fucking got a little too cocky on the feet.
Conor was way too cocky. He didn't take it serious at all. Had his hands down looking a fool and took a clean shot.
Took a clean overhand to the chin.
So
and got dropped. And then, I mean, good on his part for surviving after he got dropped because he got dropped early in that round. It was like in the first minute of the round. And
embarrassing. Conor just fought that terrible.
Yeah. And so when you look at that I think Dustin had the best.
Now that we're talking it out and hashing it out, I'm going to have to agree with you. I forget how shitty Conor. I forgot about that. I was just thinking more of the one round. And the 4 rounds lasted, but breaking down the fight a little bit. Yeah, you're not wrong.
But here's the thing too, is when you look at somebody who's dominant as Khabib, like in his technique wise and like what he does in the octagon, like I don't know, like he looked weird all week. Like that's why I was really, really, really big on the upset too. Like I was watching everything and the embedded.
I know he said he didn't like the energy. Fucking his dad wasn't there.
He's just looking sad all day.
It must have been his dad not being there.
Obviously.
Obviously, but at the end of the fight, he retires. Mows through Justin, retires. He said that he didn't want to do this without his father, and that he also made a promise to his mother. And for those of you listening that might not be aware, I feel like these words carry significant weight because a lot of fighters retire and then come back.
So they're doing it for the kids and this and that.
Yeah, in his culture and where he lives, as part of the culture that he's a part of, he's the youngest son, so his job is to stay at home and care for his parents.
Yeah.
And that's a lot different than just anybody else like here in America who doesn't live that way.
And a lot of other cultures do that, but usually it's like a firstborn or something like that. But
when he makes a promise to his mother and now his late father, that carries significant more weight over there than just maybe somebody over here making that same type of promise, which might be weighty, but we don't have cultural duties here to care like that.
Well, not like deep embedded cultural duties like
exactly.
that.
So I think when he says those are the two reasons, that's it. He's done. We're not going to see him competing again in mixed martial arts. And that, Paul, kind of leads into the next part of the discussion because people now won't stop talking about, and he said it himself in his post-fight interview, that he just wants to be considered the pound-for-pound greatest of all time.
Come Tuesday.
And that's sweet. That's nice. That's an admirable goal. But the problem is you just retired after 3 solid title fights and 1 sort of title fight.
Yeah.
We've got Dana White, of course, saying that he is the GOAT. We've got John Anik and DC, the 2 UFC commentators. But those guys aren't really commentators. They're UFC hype men. They work for the UFC. They're not.
Well, not only that, they're one's Khabib's teammate, and the other one is the best friend of Khabib's teammate also. DC and John Anik were friends, I guess, before the UFC. Or like, before Anik stepped up for and was
they're
the
all
main
a crew. And DC
like,
trains with Khabib. He's openly friends with him. And DC has 2 losses to the actual current active greatest fighter of all time.
Or at least the top of the pound-for-pound list.
Yeah, the top of the pound-for-pound list being John Jones. And so Nurmagomedov, sparks this great argument here in the MMA world. And I don't think you can listen to the UFC about this because Dana will say the GOAT is whoever is the best guy fighting that weekend. And when he's trying to sell a fucking pay-per-view.
Yeah.
So Yeah, this is the guy that once said Renan Barão was the greatest fighter of all time as well.
Yeah.
So, those words don't mean shit to me. Words, period, don't mean shit to me. We got to look at records here. So let's branch off into this discussion real quick. He's 28-0, 29-0, 13-0 in the UFC.
4-time world champ.
Beat Al Iaquinta for a vacant title, which I'm sorry, no offense to Al. I just don't really, I know it's an official title fight, but in my mind, that's not really a title fight. But then he does fight the guy who got this belt stripped, Connor, demolishes him.
Mm-hmm.
Then he's out for so long, they create an interim belt, which Dustin Poirier wins. Then he finally fights Dustin, beats him in 3 rounds. Then he's out for so long, they create another interim belt. And it brings us to Gaethje, who he mows down.
Yeah.
Compared to, say, 15 world titles by John Jones.
And then not even to mention George St. Pierre, who also has 15.
George St. Pierre also 15. Demetrius Johnson 12, 13.
12, something like that.
For fuck's sake, how about Amanda Nunes, 2-weight active champion?
Yeah.
I think it's just an absurd statement, dude. He's possibly the greatest lightweight,
Yeah.
and you're nowhere near the greatest GOAT
Here's
of
the
all
thing,
time.
though.
Sorry, dude. You're not.
He may be.
Take a breath, fanboys.
Yeah, like, let's just be honest here. Like, it just numbers don't lie. Like, and it comes down to who's your guy?
Well,
kinda
let me play
thing.
devil's advocate. You just said numbers don't lie. Okay, so I'm just going to play devil's advocate here. If numbers don't lie, Paul, well, he's only lost 1 round in his entire UFC career. Those numbers don't lie.
John Jones is undefeated too, though.
Yeah, but did John Jones win every round?
I mean, the longevity is where you come into that situation is like.
Or how about the competition, devil's advocate period over? How about the competition? John Jones faced a who's who of up-and-comers and current and former champions.
Mm-hmm.
And Khabib faced 3 elite fighters and beat them handily. It's not the same.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Not a single. No offense to Conor McGregor, but none of those guys are generationally great. Like, no offense. Like, Conor McGregor is generationally great. Like, as far as like, he was shot out of a cannon and he struck when the iron is hot, and he did what he did, and he won those belts and all that shit. His legacy.
Yeah, but he's not a type. He's not a
not the
dominant
greatest of all
champion.
time.
He's not the greatest fighter of all time. No.
Yeah.
Of
When
course
you look
not.
at some of the guys that Jones has beat, we've got one of them who was on 2 of the 3 people's lists for greatest of all time. He was on
Daniel Cormier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like
He beat DC twice.
twice. Yeah.
He beat Shogun for the title when Shogun was still something.
Yeah.
And John was just a 21-year-old kid.
Yeah. Youngest champion ever.
Then if you take away,
How come no one ever talks about that either? No one ever talks about how
youngest
Jones
champ
is the
ever,
youngest
who then
champion
reigned
ever.
for a
Who
decade.
was signed by the UFC after his 4th fight.
Yeah, his 4th fight and his 9th month since his first time training MMA.
Yeah.
He learned about MMA 9 months later. Was in the UFC after 4 fights.
15-time world champion.
Yeah, the dude. If I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong in this.
15 fucking
But
times.
I'm almost positive he had his first MMA fight after less than 2 weeks of training.
That's what he said, yeah. He's beat the who's who of all. Like, he beat Chael, Bader, Machida, Shogun, Vitor, Rampage, Gus twice, DC twice. Like, even the guys that he's beaten in this generation, like, I mean, maybe they don't carry the same weight, but they're still up there. You know what I mean? Guys like Dominic Reyes, Anthony Smith, Thiago Santos, freaking, if you want to go all the way back, guys like, remember, like,
Dude, he fucked up Stephen Bonner.
that's what I was
back
just
in
going
the
to say.
day, for
Like, remember
fuck's
back
sake,
in the
man.
day when he fucked Stephen Bonner up and he was suplexing him and
Yeah.
making him look like a fool?
Yeah. Back
And
when
that-
Bonner still carried a little bit of weight too.
Yeah.
No, there's no contest here. Khabib, and it's not an insult to him to say you don't belong in this conversation. I'm sorry, you don't. Maybe if he hadn't retired and he kept fighting for the next 5 years defending that title.
Here's where I think he does and he doesn't belong in the conversation. I think he belongs in the conversation as in top 5 greatest fighters of all time. But where I don't think he belongs is 1 or 2.
I don't know. I think he belongs in the conversation of the top 10. And I think maybe he's the best lightweight.
He's definitely the best lightweight.
I mean, who would you put up there against him? He tied BJ Penn's record of title defense.
Yeah.
And people want to shit on BJ now because he's the shell of a man, the shell of a fighter that he was. But in his heyday, BJ Penn was the shit. But then the problem was, who beat Penn twice? Oh, yeah, the other guy we're talking about, George St. Pierre.
Yeah.
George St. Pierre probably has a better resume than John Jones. The thing is, Jones is adding to his while Pierre's all done.
Yeah.
Pierre does have the two weight class thing. He does have the win over Michael Bisping.
Yep.
It's unfortunate that he just vacated and left right after that, but it is what it is. You can't take it away
it also
from
came down to an injury though too. He had the same thing Brock Lesnar had. He had diverticulitis.
I mean, I think if you look at unactive fighters, it's hard to deny George St. Pierre. And Khabib now fits into unactive fighters. I don't see him on this list.
Well, here's the thing: is people don't realize the names that GSP beat. GSP literally beat everybody in the welterweight division.
Let's go through some of these names, because these are all names that meant something when they fought
Absolutely.
GSP as well.
So let's just start with Josh Koscheck twice.
Josh Koscheck was the shit at that time too.
Yeah, and then you got John Fitch.
Koscheck came in with that strong wrestling base and him hard fucking hitting hands.
Oh
man.
yeah, for sure.
He was
like
a
the
problem.
first, like he was a prototype for what all these guys that came into the welterweight division after, like Tyron Woodley.
Yeah, he was an AKA back in the day. They
Tyron-
forget about that because
Tyron Woodley, Fitch, all those guys who like have had that wrestle style, but can still throw like bombs on the feet, like Johnny Hendricks.
Yeah.
So people like that. But let's just keep going down the list. So we got Koscheck twice. Then you got John Fitch, another freaking.
I mean, look how strong John Fitch's wrestling is, to the point where he was still, fighting as of 3 months ago until he fucking just retired now.
Then you got BJ Penn twice.
And that was when BJ was a bad motherfucker.
Bad.
Not this guy you see now. All these young kids watching fucking MMA now think BJ Penn is just what the fuck. Or you go Wikipedia him and you see his record and you're like, oh my god,
yeah,
this guy sucks. No. Penn was a monster.
Monster at the time. He was a champion. Remember that?
Yeah,
was
he went
Penn
up and won welterweight.
He was trying to become the double champ.
Then.
Yeah. So then you got Jake Shields.
Jake Shields was
an animal at that time. He came to the UFC and everyone was like, "Holy shit, this is the guy that was gonna beat GSP." Remember he was like the prototype of like, "Oh, this is the kind of guy that's gonna beat."
Dude,
GSP.
I remember ordering that pay-per-view. It was the one in Canada with like 50,000 people, and Shields was my boy because I had met him at a fucking event before, and he was real cool. And then he's part of that whole, the whole fucking Scrap Pack crew, which I'm a fan of. So I was like, oh yeah. But then, dude, GSP shut him down. Man.
Shut him down. And then you got guys like Dan Hardy. Although Matt Serra beat him, he avenged his loss against Matt.
Yeah, he has the knockout.
He was winning every fucking second of it.
Yeah, then Serra lands a bomb out of nowhere, KOs him.
Yeah.
Becomes the champ, which was a great story for him. The problem for Serra was that, GSP came right back.
And
whooped his ass.
Then you got Carlos Condit, another. At that time, nobody was beating Carlos Condit.
Beast. Yeah.
It's crazy. And then you got, of course,
Carlos
Nick
Condit, when he was coming
Diaz.
out, man, he had Jackson Wink.
Jackson Wink, yeah.
And he was they called him the natural born killer for a reason. That dude was violent, leave you bloody.
Yeah.
Nasty ass elbows.
He was like the
nothing
original
for
Tony
GSP.
Ferguson.
Yeah. Nothing for GSP.
Nothing, yeah, zero. Then you got, of course, Nick Diaz, another one. That was probably the most not political, I don't know. It was like
publicized event, yeah, because you had Nick coming over from Strikeforce as the champ,
Of course, you had that like iffy decision with Condit where like some people thought he won, some people thought he lost, and then Diaz's name just kind of carried more weight, so they ended up giving him the fight.
Yeah,
and shut him down too, like completely shut him down, and then. You got Johnny Hendricks, which people always like to point to that one, and it's got its history behind it. But
dude, at the end of the day, when you look at who won and who lost, George St. Pierre won the fight. So
him being a 15-time champion will be a lot remembered than him possibly having an iffy decision win against Johnny Hendricks.
That's the same thing with Jones. People want to be like, oh, he lost to Thiago Santos. Well, actually, no, he didn't.
Well, not Thiago Santos.
Or not Thiago,
Dominic Reyes.
Dominic Reyes. No, he won.
Yeah,
I
he
mean,
definitely won.
you
the
can
fight.
share your opinions.
Yeah, but he won. Yeah,
But he won.
the official scorecard.
It really doesn't matter what you think at all, or what any of us think. He won.
Exactly,
So
yeah.
same thing with Pierre there, because I thought he lost to Hendricks too. And when that was over, I was like, wow, okay.
Yeah.
And then boom.
It is what it is, though.
Just beat whatever. He
Yeah.
won. 15-time champ, leaves on top.
And then he comes back. What was that 2.5, 3 years later? And then he beats Michael Bisping
For the 185 pound
handedly.
strap. Yeah.
Just whooped his ass completely.
Yep. And then we balance that against Khabib, who won again, Ally Quinta for the vacant, and then Conor Poirier Gaethje. It's not comparable.
Well, and here's the thing. Here's the two performances that
It's
made.
not comparable.
Well, here's the thing. I'm gonna play devil's advocate here.
We'll fire up this other joint.
Here's where the story of Khabib started. Is when you look at the fights like the RDA fight, when RDA was, one of the best lightweights in the world, and then 4 fights after that fight goes on to win the lightweight title. So that's like when you start to see him and go, wow, he's gonna be big. And then
He had that fight against, was it Gleason Tybau? He took him down like 21 times or something
yeah,
like that.
yeah, something like that. No, not T-Bow. He took fucking.
Or no, it was Alves, Thiago Alves.
Thiago
huh?
Alves 21 times.
Or not,
yeah.
it was Thiago.
Not Thiago Alves. Fucking what's
The
his
smaller Alves.
name? Yeah.
Yeah.
I know what
Fuck,
you're
can't
talking
remember his name, but yeah, that dude.
about.
He's in World Series of Bare Knuckle right now.
What is his name? I gotta find it now.
His last name's Alves for sure. He's in bare knuckle fighting. Like he just fought Julian Lane. Remember?
No, that's Thiago Alves. That's a welterweight.
Well, he had the 21 takedown thing, and you knew
Yeah, that's
even then. I mean, that was something special, even though the competition level was a bit lower. But
Thiago Tavares.
there you go.
That's who it was.
There it is.
The Gleison T-Bow fight was an iffy one.
Yeah, I remember watching that. I was in a bar in Colorado Springs with my friend Roger. We were watching that shit at a fucking Buffalo Wild Wings. We both thought he lost.
And they gave him all the rounds. It's crazy.
They gave him all the fucking rounds.
Made no
what
sense.
the hell? Okay.
But so then, you move along, and, there was going to be the Tony Khabib fight after he fought Michael Johnson. He takes out Michael Johnson in devastating fashion.
Yeah, that's a great fight that
the
never
first-
happened, of course. It's not, well, some of it's his fault because he came in overweight and had the great tiramisu incident.
Yeah.
But then, it was at 5 times with Tony and Khabib.
Yeah, well, that's where some of the issues are on him, and some of them aren't. Like names like Daryl Horcher, who are on his record, aren't really his fault. Like he took a short notice fight, and Tony had whatever happened at that time. I think it was an injury or something like that. But that fight caused a couple weird matchups for him. And then you go to Edson Barboza, where he just continues like the narrative of like this guy beats the will out of people. He
See, here's another flaw in the Khabib's the greatest because, yes, he's fought the guys like Edson Barboza. What is Edson Barboza's known weakness?
striking.
No, he's a great striker.
Oh no, I'm sorry.
That's
Yeah.
wrestling.
This is wrestling.
Yes. I mean, he didn't fight anybody like that. Was supposed to be the great equalizer here with Gaethje was the wrestling. But the problem is we never saw Gaethje's wrestling in any fight prior, and we didn't see it there either.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. So there's always this thing, well, what if he would have faced somebody who was a strong wrestler, like a Michael Chandler?
Yeah. Or Tony Ferguson.
Or Tony Ferguson.
Or Gleison T-Bow.
Yeah. There you go. But you take someone like John Jones. John Jones fought everybody who was anybody, and then he also, sometimes to his detriment, fought their style against them.
Well, I think that also shows that he evolved, though, in front of our eyes. You know what I
Yes.
mean? Like, people can sit there and say that, well, Khabib just came in as this dominant force and just mowed through the division.
Yeah, but
in
Jones
reality,
is good at everything.
Jones has evolved with the division. Jones has
Yes.
been put in spots where maybe a lot of other guys would, they tap or they would have quit and shit like that. Like,
Right.
How many people would have tapped a Vitor Belfort in that armbar?
A lot, I would say.
A lot of people. How many people would have been stopped by Gus in that 5-round fight? A lot of people.
Yes.
How many people would have been
He
knocked
had
out
to
by
show that
like,
medal in that
yeah.
first Gus fight. He had to come back in that fourth round.
Exactly.
And fucking in that fifth round and really show what was up after getting beat up for a while. And we never got to see that with Khabib. And so that's both a pro and a minus on his
Well, that's the same thing
part.
with GSP too. GSP and John Jones, we saw the best and worst of them. And we saw how they reacted to adversity. And I just feel like Khabib never really faced that adversity.
Right. Because they're like, oh, well, GSP lost. Yep, and he came back and those times and he beat that motherfucker who beat him. Convincingly.
And just to play devil's advocate again here, though. While that's true, Khabib was also so dominant that he never faced any adversity.
This is true. How much more active was GSP and is John Jones
Well, GSP,
since getting the title?
here's the thing, is, they're both earlier in their careers, absolutely. They're way more active than Khabib ever was. But when you get so here's the thing. Khabib didn't win the belt until he was 26-0, right?
Yeah.
So John Jones won the belt when he was 9-0-1 or 9-1, I guess. But that really doesn't matter. That one, everybody knows that.
Well, that one's
DQ
not a real
doesn't
one. That's
matter.
not.
Yeah, he was about 9-1.
Matt Hamill is a bullshit disqualification.
Even Matt Hamill says that he just gave up because he was done.
Yeah.
But and then GSP probably won his belt when he was about 12-1 or something like that. Right? Somewhere in that range. Both of them. My point is, though, they both won the belt early in their career, whereas Khabib won the belt later in his career.
Right, and they did the hardest thing to do, which is defend it for years and years and years and years.
Exactly.
And people want to say, well, Khabib's been champ for years.
Man.
But yeah, dude, he fights once a fucking year. I mean, yes, he's been champ for several years, and he just made his third fucking defense.
I mean, how long? He really hasn't been champ that long, though.
Dude,
if you look at the great annals of, the UFC, if you go back to, the UFC back in the early...
he hasn't been champ that long.
Yeah, if you go back to the UFC in the early, 2007 to 2012 range, you're probably going to find the same people as the champion for all 5 of those years. There was a lot of dominant champions back in the day. People don't realize that.
It's kind of like Kane. Kane was champ for a long time, but he didn't fight that often.
Exactly.
You have to look at the number of fights.
Yeah.
We have so
The
many
number of
defenses
fights
from
fucking
these
matter,
guys,
man.
especially when they're championship fights, because you're fighting the best of the best. It's unlike a lot of Khabib's record, which, let's be honest, it came from Russia early on. Outside of these 13 in the UFC, who the hell are these people?
True.
I mean, it's different when you're a champion because you're fighting the number one guy all the fucking time. It's always the best person that is possibly available to fight, unless it's a short notice thing like Chael when he came in against Jones.
Yeah.
Other than that, you're fighting the one who's waited through the killers to get to you.
Mm-hmm. And Jones, and what I think Khabib's also missing is the devastating finishes. He breaks people, but we never seen Khabib do anything devastatingly Jones has some devastating finishes.
Fuck,
when
look at
John
Mighty
Jones,
Mouse, dude. Mighty Mouse should be in this talk a little bit. He's got a flying fucking armbar finish in a championship fight against.
The only thing that disqualifies me for Mighty Mouse is a lot of those losses he had earlier in his career were never avenged, and they were kind of washes. Yeah, but
2 losses.
The 2 losses that
to Dominic Cruz.
Yeah,
at 135. He's fighting 135 now.
They were bad though.
They don't cut weight over there.
Then
He's
Brad
not
Pickett
fighting.
knocked him out, right?
I don't think so.
Think so.
Maybe at 135, but and in his proper weight class, he's a very small man.
Yeah, I gotta find Demetrius now.
He obviously went on an incredible title run. And has got very exciting finishes for people that want to talk shit. He's got decision wins, submission, and KO wins. And spectacular flying fucking armbar.
Just because I don't want to disrespect Demetrius Johnson, I'm going to go ahead and entertain your idea here. I just don't think that the resume is there.
But the title, the dominance.
The dominance is there, for sure.
Now, though people say that, well, the
Yeah,
division
Brad
was
Pickett
weak
knocked him out in 2010
in 2010 at 135, though,
in
right?
WEC. It doesn't say here.
Yeah, that was a
'Cause
one.
it's
Yeah,
WEC.
Brad Pickett's never fought flyweight.
Oh,
in
wait,
his
no, he
life.
beat him by unanimous decision. What?
Okay, that's more like it. I don't think he got KO'd.
Ooh. Okay. So,
Well,
and
I think
then-
if you're talking about
you know what also is a tough one for me?
what's that?
Although he avenged it the second time, that first Ian McCall fight that was called a draw,
Oh, McCall
I
clearly
thought
won.
McCall won that.
He got robbed. That was poor. That was a mistake on that whole little fucking thing. Yeah.
So I don't know.
But then, of course, he does come back and he beat McCall handily when McCall finally got to him again, or in the third fight. But, you know.
So yeah, I agree with you. Freaking Demetrius was for sure dominant, but I just don't have. I don't know. He doesn't have that signature win that like Jones, Khabib, and GSP have. You know, he's missing that like signature like name to put above the rest.
He could have had it had he stayed in the UFC and fought Cejudo again.
Third time.
Well, yes, because that was a very controversial fight. I mean, going into the fifth round,
Yeah.
I mean, the facts are it was 2-2 on all the scorecards, and Demetrius Johnson had a broken foot by the fifth round.
Well, here's what
So-
what it comes down to when you talk about that fight.
You know, a rubber match would have been nice to see.
Absolutely. But at the same time, when it comes down to that fight, it really just it depends on what tickles your fancy, honestly. Like it's like how do you value striking versus grappling? Because like if you look at that fight and I don't see it as close as the scorecard said it was. Like I think with his like I never really saw any situation where Demetrius was like hurting him or he was hurting him. Like I feel like it was pure grappling throughout the fight that won Cejudo that fight. And if they rematched, I just don't. I don't know. Not saying he wouldn't win. I'm just saying that like I feel like the grappling advantage is there's a gap there. I think that's why he lost that fight more than whether. Not saying I know you didn't necessarily say he lost it because of injury or anything, but I'm saying like I don't think that had as much to do with Henry just having the perfect game plan and executing the game plan to win.
Well, too bad we will never see the rubber match. But
I mean, we could, dude. We got Henry who's retired and Demetrius who's still in one FC or one championship.
yeah, he's about
like-
to unify his Grand Prix win with their title over there.
Well, let's just say, I mean, somehow, some way, Henry Cejudo were to get, because Henry Cejudo's even talked about this before.
Well, he could bounce over there, but I think
Dude, he's
under
talked about.
contract
Yeah, I was gonna
still.
say he talked about this before. I wonder how many fights he has left on his deal. Because after the Demetrius fight, he renegotiated when he fought TJ, or no, yeah, when he fought TJ, and I wonder how long that deal was, and if he really wanted to, dude. I think if he really wanted to make some money, I think it would be over there fighting Demetrius.
Could be.
Well, because like there's just the market's there. You know what I mean?
That it is. We'll see if Demetrius wins his next fight.
Yeah. So I don't know. It really comes
Well-
down to those four guys, though. For me, it's either Jones, GSP, Demetrius, and I can't lie. Khabib's entered the conversation. I don't know if he's at the top of the conversation, but he's entered the conversation with what he's done. In my personal opinion, had he beaten Tony Ferguson and beaten Michael Chandler and been 31-0 and retired, I would say that he's in the top three. But as of right now, I got GSP, Jones, and Demetrius above him. I'll just give you my five right now. Jones, GSP, Demetrius Johnson, Khabib, and then fifth, Stipe.
That's a solid list.
Because I just feel like when you talk about greatest of all time, and you talk about that pound for pound list, like, let's just think of it this way. If you had John Jones, GSP, and all these guys were the same size and, had their skill sets, who do you think wins? That's what I think of when I think pound for pound.
Well, right. That is how you're supposed to think about it, but that's a crazy scenario because do they keep all their same attributes? Like, is Mighty Mouse as speedy as he is right now when he's fucking 205 pounds? Because he'd probably go in there and fuck John Jones's whole world up if he is.
Yeah.
Well,
I think that's where I feel like the Khabib selling point's at, though. You know what I mean? That's where people try to sell that is like they're like, but he was so dominant, like, and it's just like.
But against two, that's why I just always circle. But against two, you say John Jones is dominant against two. Well, this former champ, this former champ. Khabib is dominant against two. Okay, well he fought these three guys.
I'd put RDA,
and then
I'll say 4
decent fighters.
RDA's
is decent, but he's lost a lot. I mean.
He's
How many
lost
times
since,
we got to see him get shellacked before we start
here's the thing,
reassessing
though. At the
RDA?
time, he was much better than he is now.
Because he's just been shellacked too many times for me.
Yeah.
Like,
well, I feel like
and
that's
he's not
soured.
old.
I feel like that's
it's not like
soured.
BJ Penn coming back and fucking up his career. RDA's been active this whole time, and he's just been getting his ass kicked 6 ways from fucking Sunday ever since Eddie Alvarez. And before that, Khabib. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
But, I mean, he was good. I don't know. But that's not what this conversation's about, RDA. But I agree with John Jones is at the top of the heap. Stipe and some of these other guys could climb up higher. Well, I tend to look at it. I like to look at it differently between retired fighters and active fighters. Mm-hmm. But John Jones is right up at the top. Anderson Silva would probably be number 2, then GSP, and then Demetrius Johnson. And then I put Stipe probably at number 5.
Yep. I tend to agree. I like the Anderson in there. I have a hard time with Anderson or Stipe because, like, I love Anderson. When Anderson was at his peak, he was great. And he was, like, definitely one of the greatest fighters we've ever seen. But my problem is he just stuck around too long.
Yeah, I mean, he's fighting this weekend, and I don't like his chances all that well. I mean, he could win, but he could lose.
I feel like sticking around that long kind of dropped him out of that top 4 for me.
I tend to just picture the title run when I'm thinking of like their greatness. I'm thinking of them at their peak. Yeah. And they're performing at their best. You've got him on a 16-0 fucking streak, bouncing up to light heavyweight for these fights, coming back down.
I agree and disagree though, because I agree that does matter. But where I disagree is when you look at the greatest of all time, you have to nitpick. And when you nitpick, longevity and body of work is something that does matter. Like that's what gives like Khabib the slight edge over Anderson, in my opinion. Is like Khabib's body of work of being undefeated and then stepping away from the game kind of overtakes Anderson being undefeated for a part of, not even undefeated because he lost twice in Pride also. So being
but undefeated in the
UFC for all that time
and that lengthy title run.
Yeah, but then the losses being so bad and the continual like regression that we've seen before our eyes just kind of, I don't know.
Well, it's because Khabib's retiring early. We'll never see that because the truth is this is fighting. That would not have stayed, and at some point someone would come around and beat Khabib fucking silly and would be the man because either someone will get better or Khabib will get older. Yeah. That's just same thing will happen to Jones unless he manages to get out before it does, which I doubt. It's really smart of Khabib outside of the family influence. Mm-hmm. Like, if you're going to go out like that, man. Yeah. You got that O. Yeah. It's fucking fighting, dude. You're not going to be the baddest dude forever. Yeah. And Stipe could climb higher on the list if he continues to reign here for a while. And I think a lot of what Stipe does has to do with his division as well.
Yeah, I think everything would depend on – the only thing that would get Stipe
Demetrius
up this
could go
ladder –
higher too.
The only thing that gets Stipe up this ladder is beating John Jones.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. They're active. They're probably going to meet. That could shift things all around. That shifts Jones out of there. That really elevates Stipe.
Yeah. It could make GSP the greatest of all time.
And it could move GSP up the list. These things are fun. But that's why I tend to like to separate them a little bit from active to retired. Just because it's easier. Because you never know. Yeah. Shit, we could see Jones. I doubt it, but we could see him go on to make terrible mistakes to his legacy, kind of like Silva or a BJ Penn. Dude,
Or,
Jones could be fighting when he's 40 and lost 6 in a row to some fucking heavyweight monsters, and he's still fucking around. Like,
or
you just
what
don't
he
know
could
what
do-
people will do.
Well, that's the thing too. You know who's gonna enter this conversation very, very soon if he continues his dominance as well. I know this is really early to say this, but if Israel beats John Jones, he's in the conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, I figure he's got a long career in front of him.
He
Like,
does.
if he did the same thing that Khabib just did, like if he retires after his next fight, he'd fuck it all up. But
Yeah.
no, you're right.
If he were to go
he's the
and
guy
defeat
storming on
John
the scene.
Jones, that he would be in this conversation as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think he's going to be wanting to stay in his weight class for a while and make a statement.
I don't know. You know what I
Oh,
heard?
if he bounces up and fights Jones, I still
not
think
even
he'll.
Jones. You know what I heard?
I still think he'll stick around at
You know who?
185.
You know what Ariel Hawani said?
Huh.
That man's words carry weight. That supposedly the UFC had offered Israel Adesanya a shot at the light heavyweight championship against Jan Blachowicz on December 29th to save that pay-per-view, and Jan only said no because his wife is going into labor soon.
Can't blame a man for that.
I know, but that just speaks to the volumes of Israel Adesanya is here to make a splash. You know what I mean? He's here to do whatever he has to do to either maybe get that Jones fight or make that Jones fight bigger. And let's say if freaking Israel took John's belt and then held it over his head, that would just be that would make for the best promotion of all time.
No.
Like it'd be electric. Hopefully we're out of COVID time for that.
That's for sure, bro. Yeah,
Let's talk about that a little bit though. So let's move back. That the GOAT conversation kind of
Yeah,
is
I mean
where it is.
that's about
But
enough of that.
That's kind of all tied into the main event. So let's go back to this UFC 254. Let's talk about something real quick though.
Yeah.
The UFC invited about 100 private guests to this event to watch, as in like kind of a test crowd kind of situation.
Yeah.
A lot of them were fighters, family members, and YouTubers and influencers and all these different people. Like Steve will do it and all his boys.
Right.
Doing shoeies with Tai Tuivasa, and you know all that. They got the T-shirts and the hashtags on the T-shirts, all that shit.
Right.
And it's like all that's promotion for the UFC. So now that we're getting these test crowds going and all that stuff, why is the UFC so reluctant to make like that Cowboy Stadium kind of thing happen? Because in Texas they're allowing crowds. The Cowboys have had fans every single week this year, other than week 1.
I'll tell you my theory on that. The way Dana seems to be with things is the stronger he denies something and the quicker he dismisses it,
Yeah, true.
it's usually the more likely it means it's going to occur.
He hates people stepping on his toes and figuring shit out.
Like, remember when Floyd was not going to fucking happen?
Or remember when Brock Lesnar was coming back to the UFC and he took Ariel Hawani's fucking media passes for announcing Brock Lesnar was coming back before the promo hit? Like,
so
there's these things.
I tend to think, I mean, that's a real thing. If you follow Dana, he doesn't like to be scooped in any way, shape, or form, and it's always his idea.
Yeah, it's got.
He would never get it out that they're capitulating to Conor this early.
No.
Because it doesn't make any sense. He just wants to be the one to break it when they want to break it.
Yeah.
My guess is now, with more than likely, that's going to be for a championship fight. And now, are you kidding? You wouldn't put it in Cowboy Stadium now that it's for the undisputed belt?
Yeah.
You could have Conor win the title again, which is great for business in front of a crowd. Even at 10% capacity, that stadium would have 10,000 fucking people watching.
Bigger
that
than any UFC, like normal, like T-Mobile Arena kind of deal.
Yeah, T-Mobile is at the most for a fight.
Like
it's going to get up around 26, 27,000, and that's just because the UFC cage takes up small space. The seat on the floor there.
Floor seats and shit. Yeah.
I mean,
imagine floor seats in a football stadium, dude. Come on, that's like WrestleMania type numbers.
I predict that's still going to happen. I think they're going to do it. Dana just doesn't want it out now.
Yeah. No.
He doesn't want it to take the shine away.
No. Well,
especially if he starts really shooting it down here soon.
Yeah, he's going to, dude. He's going to.
But that was one of the first things I thought of when Khabib retired. I was like, okay, well, now they have a belt.
You think he knew?
I don't know. Looking back now at Khabib's demeanor, and he had said some things about retirement. Like, he was joking in the media, like, what, you guys don't want me around anymore? Maybe I'll retire. I don't know. I don't think he knew.
No?
I don't think Khabib shares that type of information with Dana White. But what the fuck do I know? I'm just guessing.
Yeah. I could see that.
I mean,
I could see him knowing.
do you think
like,
Khabib really likes Dana White? Khabib was refusing to come back to Las Vegas. Dana White is Mr. Las fucking Vegas.
Yeah, true.
I mean, he's having sexual lawsuits in the fucking tabloids out here. You know, sex tape lawsuits in the tabloids. He lives here in Las Vegas. I'm not saying that he did those things or is a shitty person. I'm just saying he gets upset with Conor McGregor because Conor drinks fucking whiskey, bro. Do you think, like, deep down he thinks Dana's some great dude that he's going to go confide some deep family fucking issue like his retirement seems to have been? I doubt it, dude. I fucking seriously doubt it.
You're right. I
like,
agree.
publicly, sure, it'd be nice, do his thing. I respect you, blah, blah, blah. But nah, he don't like that motherfucker.
Nah, you don't like that.
Hell no. I don't like Dana fucking White.
All right, so I think that kind of closes out that kind of like thing. But let's get back to the UFC 254. So then in the co-main event, we had Robert Whittaker pretty much put on a like technique clinic.
Yeah, I was
on
totally
Jared
wrong
Cannonier.
on this fight. I thought Cannonier would display some power and better shit. He didn't.
Although freaking he ripped Robert's leg up with those leg kicks, man. He what was crazy about it though is like Rob was still like throwing kicks with that leg and standing on it, like although like when he wobbled him like with the leg kicks, like it never like necessarily like stopped Whittaker from still moving forward. He never like limped out, like, you know what I'm saying, like when you really really hurt someone like with leg kicks, then they're just, you know, they're freaking spaghetti legs, you know what I mean? And Robert was still throwing big shots, like going to that side.
Yeah, it didn't take his power away.
Yeah, it didn't take any of that away. So I think, but let's just take a second and agree that, like, holy shit, Jared Cannonier freaking has some of the nastiest leg kicks in MMA. Like,
yeah, they were brutal.
Like, dude, disgustingly brutal. And Robert Whittaker checked zero.
Yeah, he just absorbed them all and kept coming.
He was just like, I'm coming.
Solid fight by Whittaker. I mean, clear winner.
Yep. He got in a little trouble there late in the third, but it was nothing that
Kennedy
he
was coming
couldn't
on like he
overcome.
had to. Like he needed to do what he was trying to do.
Exactly. Yeah,
it didn't work though.
Yeah, there was nothing he could do at that point. It was either knock him out or the fight was going to be a 30-27, which I think it was 29-28.
29-28, I think, across the board. But,
yeah.
Good fight. Whittaker now, you've got Dana saying that he's next for Adesanya.
Yep.
If that makes sense.
Yep.
And that's fine with me, although I don't really like his chances in this fight either. Sorry, Rob.
I think it's just a bad stylistic matchup for them. I just feel like Izzy's stand-up is so much like
I'm not even really intrigued by that fight, honestly.
Bobby's good in the striking part, but like when it comes to like overall like the kicks and everything, he's like a little stiff, whereas Israel just kind of flows. You know what I mean?
I mean, if they make it, great. Nothing against Rob Whittaker. I'm just not very interested in that fight. I wish something different would come along. Maybe we'll still do something surprising at light heavyweight. Who knows? How about Alexander Volkov versus Walt Harris, which is a fairly uneventful fight until the liver kick felt around the world. Jesus, that was terrible.
Well, and here's the thing: is like Volkov, for once, like hasn't been doing this as much lately, but for once he used his length, stayed on the outside, picked his shots, and was able to get the finish. And stayed on the game plan. Didn't get wild. Didn't get into a firefight, because that's his biggest flaw. His biggest flaw is he's known to entertain the firefight, and like he's a great, like, you know, technical kickboxer, and he will beat the shit out of everybody that he follows the game plan against.
Yes, and
But-
getting into a firefight at heavyweight is a dangerous proposition.
dangerous
It
game.
doesn't really matter the skill level because these guys, there's just too much power there.
Yeah, way too much.
You know.
Well, that's basically what happened when he fought Derek Lewis. Is Derek Lewis just made him get into a firefight and egged him on until he's like, all right, motherfucker, let's do this then. And then Derek Lewis ends up knocking him out. And then, like, you
10
know, it's
seconds.
just it is what it is. Like, he just gets into these situations, and then now when you watch this fight, you see him kind of shy. I mean, Walt's not the best striker, but you know he still carries.
He's okay. He's still a
carries power.
heavyweight.
Yeah,
He's athletic as fuck.
yeah. So
And,
I just feel like we saw Volkov just stay to the game plan and get the job done at the end of the day.
And then finally, gets the TKO victory with a liver kick that just.
Yeah.
I mean, Harris just dropped to the mat and started yelling, basically.
Yeah.
Like, it was sick. It was like a knife blade right to the perfect spot, and then that ended that.
Yeah, it was over
So,
after that.
But that was pretty entertaining, I thought. I feel bad for Walt Harris.
I was just gonna say,
mean, seriously.
I hate watching Walt Harris lose, dude. I
I
can't
do too.
anymore.
It's tough.
Throw him a bone, please.
Yeah, please.
I know
UFC.
he's in this like conversation of like the title picture in the top 15, but like, man, you ever heard of a nice little warm up fight for a guy like that? Like, come on, man, he's been through a lot. Like,
The dude
I know
could
that's
use a
kind of just
W, him
sympathetic, and
his
you know,
wife.
like you can't really be like that with all your fighters and all that shit. But like, this situation's different.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. Let's get him
get him.
somebody.
Someone on.
Somebody he's supposed to win.
Give him
It's not
Stefan
necessarily
Struve
top-
or something.
Yeah, give him Stefan Struve. There you go. Dude, Stefan Struve fought on this card.
Yeah, and was knocked out by Bam Bam Tuivasa.
Stefan
end of the
Struve,
first round.
Struve. Folks, if you're listening, you don't know who that is. He's 7 feet tall.
Skyscraper.
Bam Bam Tuivasa
every fight,
is 6
he's
foot
got a
2.
different height though. Every fight, Struve comes out as a different height. He's like 6'11", 6'10 and a half, 6'9". Like
I've only
whoa,
seen him at
7
6'11
foot.
and a half and then 7 foot. I've only seen those two. But he's 7 feet tall.
Yeah, he's 7 feet tall.
And
It's fucking- doesn't know how to throw a jab either though.
I was so mad watching that fight. I've never been so disgusted. How do you stand that big, have arms that long, and you don't know how to throw a goddamn jab? Stefan Struve, somebody tell me. Riddle me this.
How did you
He's
get?
leading with kicks against a 6'2" man who all he has to do is get inside and start throwing fucking uppercuts.
Well, here's his problem too: is when he throws his kicks, he drops his hands.
Yes, he keeps his hands around his waist and throws kicks with these enormous legs. That is, it's a monster leg. It's pretty easy to grab, bro. If you just use your fucking jab, your 6 foot arm will keep your tiny short opponent way out there. You don't have to have a good jab. You
and
just
then you
gotta
can
pop
choose
that
where your
fucking
kicks
thing.
land. Then you can
It's
choose your
unbelievable.
kicks.
It is unbelievable.
You know what I mean?
Because what happened to him? Oh, well, he instead led with kicks, and then Tuivasa kind of caught and
took him down,
deflected
too,
one,
and-
came inside, pulled him against the fence, and beat the shit out of him and KO'd him. Oh,
Yeah. Yep.
oh.
Credit to Tuivasa as well.
nothing against him.
His grappling looks way
He
better.
did what you do against a guy who doesn't apparently know that his jab would be one of the best weapons in mixed martial arts.
Well, and he's another one of those guys though that kind of like a Darren Till, where you know he came to the UFC and he was so good. Like we've talked about this before. He was so good with all the media and like he's funny and he's good behind the camera. You know,
Right.
some guys just have that it factor. You know, where like when the
Yeah,
lights
Tuivasa
turn on,
had it.
you know, it's almost like they're there to entertain the camera. You know what I mean? Kind of like a Conor McGregor type. Like,
Except his skill
Except-
level is a lot lower than a
Well,
Conor
no.
McGregor's.
here's the problem though: is we don't even know that because when he came into the UFC, he rattled off 3 wins, and then they're handed him top 10, top 5
Yeah, he fights
opponents.
JDS.
Yeah, like what are we doing here? Like you got a
Shouldn't
guy.
have been.
Yeah,
There's a reason he says he's a street fighter.
yeah,
he's not.
he's progressed for
He's
sure
getting better.
in that time, but like
Grappling looked a lot better.
absolutely. But the
It's
thing
a
is
result.
like you got to give a guy like that some time to mature. He's not gonna come into the fucking UFC with like 5 wins and then just start tearing people apart. Like it's just not realistic. You know, like there's giving guys easy fights and there's giving guys that help them mature as a fighter. And I think the problem the UFC has is they give guys some of the easier fights that make them a star, but have a hard time giving those same guys the fights that are going to mature them and make sure they're ready for the fight that's going to make them a star.
He'll hopefully get a good matchup in his next fight. As far as Stefan Struve, unless you want to learn how to jab this late in your career, I think you should
done,
call
bro.
it a fucking
He's
day,
fucking
bro.
retired 3 times
Just
already.
stop,
Just
man.
stop.
I'm not going to understand that at all. Like, that is the most basic of punches. Like, if you walk into a boxing gym on the very first thing they're going to fucking teach you is how to throw a jab, and you're going to work on that for like fucking
Jab.
5 fucking months or more. That's all you're going to do is you're going to throw fucking jabs.
Uh-huh.
And that's how you learn to box. I've been there, done it. I've seen it a million times, and I don't understand why these MMA fighters can't seem to fucking get that. Like, bro, you couldn't take all this time you've been off and you're going to work on your goddamn jab?
Well, look at all the ones
man.
All the ones that have a good jabber at the top.
He's 7 feet tall. People would never be able to get on the inside if you could just throw that thing out like a piston every once in a while.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, grief, man. People would be forced to dive on him and try to get takedowns from the outside, and then he could knee the ever-living shit out of him coming in.
Well, going back to what we've always said, though, whether it be Tuivasa or Struve, is at heavyweight you can get away with a lot of the shit that you can't get away with at other divisions, because no matter if you're freaking Mark Hunt or freaking Brock Lesnar in body style, everyone at 265 pounds carries weight in their hands just based on their size. Nobody has pillow hands at heavyweight. You know what I mean? Like, that's just the reality of it.
Well, honestly, I don't want to see him fight in the UFC again. Sorry, bud. I was such a fan, like we talked about last show.
Yeah, Struve is done.
But
I think
when you can't do the basics, what are you doing? You're just hurting yourself, man.
Yeah.
You're just out there getting your fucking brain knocked around for what? I mean, yeah, you're getting a check. I get it. But
$60K or something like that.
you're not making millions, bro.
Yeah.
Fuck.
So another good fight from this weekend. We had Philip Hawes, who had just a freaking emphatic knockout. Guy who's kind of had a lot of hype coming out of the Contender Series the first time.
Yeah, hype pre-Contender Series. I mean,
Yeah.
There was hype behind that kid before Dana White ever thought of that show.
Yeah.
Then he finally got on the platform and kind of he lost.
Lost, and then he took some time to mature. Lost another fight. Won, I think, 4 in a row. Ends up back on the Contender Series. Wins by knockout. Gets this fight here. Comes in and knocks the guy out in 19 seconds?
Beautiful
like that.
performance.
And to be honest, it's crazy to me that I'm not even gonna say this. I'm not even gonna say it. I'm gonna sound like a dick, but like, come on, man. How the fuck is that guy undefeated? That he knocked out? Like, holy shit. He looks like a deer in the headlights.
Yeah, he did.
Hawes just walked him down and
There's
put
not
him
even a
out.
crowd there, bro.
Yeah.
It's just like you're fighting in your fucking gym,
Yeah.
dude. Like,
Just
it shouldn't
walked
be
him
that
down and put him out.
intimidating.
Like, it was like
Unless
he
you're
did.
really scared
There
of
was
the
no
fighter.
movement. There was no movement either. Like he
That's weird.
he threw a shot and he reacted so heavily to it that he was just like, okay, put him out.
Yeah.
Like, it was.
It's a good performance though from him.
Just
from
made no.
Hawes.
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
I'm excited, dude. I was pretty excited about him years ago when John Jones was talking about him, like back in 2016.
Yeah.
It's nice to see him here in the UFC and making a bit of a splash now. Looks like he's got it together.
Getting on the
So,
pay-per-view
word.
definitely helps him, you know. It helps.
Absolutely. That's about it for that card, huh?
Well, no, we got
No.
to. Let's talk about the fight that fucking happened 6 times over. That finally happened.
Oh, the Ion Kutaleba.
Yeah, getting knocked out in the first round.
Yeah, by
Like
Magomed.
twice. Like,
Yeah, that was so many times this fight's scheduled, 5 times, and then it was an ass kicking
dude.
one round. Kind of uneventful.
Yeah.
I expected so much more from the Hulk.
Freaking Arkalaev is freaking he's gonna be someone to reckon with, dude.
Yeah, he's got
That
some
it
skills.
factor. Like,
Yeah,
if
he's got something going on there.
like if he can get like Khabib level English, bro, he could be up there.
Yeah,
Like,
that'll definitely help him.
it definitely help him. Like, that performance he put on was ridiculous.
Very impressive.
The 1-2 that he dropped him with to start was nasty. But then to take him to go to the ground and then knock him out cold was just disgusting.
Beautiful.
It was just disgusting. And, like, I thought it should have been stopped before when he hit the ground.
Yeah, it was a little late, I thought as well, but whatever.
It's a couple little
I prefer
reffing
a little
issues
late
in
than a
there.
little early, honestly. These guys are fighters. I'm not that concerned about
Yeah,
their health
true,
getting
true.
punched. I mean,
Especially with
not
the
to sound
first
like a
fight.
dick either, but
The first fight, especially, like, the whole situation that happened there, you don't want that kind of situation again.
yeah. Exactly. The first fight gets called too early. You can't call it too early on the second time.
Well, that was, like, one of the two, like, reffing kind of fuck-ups of the night. Like, that, and then, I mean, we didn't talk about it, but in the main event, like, come on, give Gaethje a break, man. Like,
Yeah, Gaethje tapped several
about
times.
6 times,
and
and
the
then
ref just
the
didn't
ref
see
just
it.
let him get slept.
He was completely out of position. He tapped, and then the ref moved around him, and he tapped some more,
Yeah, and then he didn't call
and
it.
then he
And
went
he
to
went
sleep.
to bed. That was rough. Well,
But, yeah, I forgot. That was good to see that fight finally go down.
yeah.
And back to the drawing board for the Hulk, and excited about what's next. Now, that basically rounds out that card. We talked about the pound-for-pound great discussion coming out of there. And now we've got the UFC coming back to Vegas. Dude, I'm glad they're here, but I'm really looking forward to them going elsewhere. Having a crowd.
Yeah.
But they're back for the wonderfully named UFC Fight Night Vegas, whatever the number is.
I named it better. I put
Halloween.
Fight Night Halloween, dude.
I like
Come on,
it.
it's on Halloween.
But we talked about it a little bit earlier. We got Anderson Silva
The
here.
fighters should come out in costumes. That'd be hilarious.
That would be funny. Too bad there's not a crowd on a Halloween night UFC
Yeah.
bout
Dude, right?
out on the
Come
strip.
on.
Oh.
Come on.
We got Anderson Silva in his retirement fight against Uriah Hall, the most erratic fighter in the UFC.
He's put on some. He's put it together though recently. He seems to be on the right path. He just can't seem to get an opponent to freaking make it to the fight.
If he can win here, it'd really help him.
That's
Uriah
why-
Hall.
This originally was supposed to be Yoel.
Yes. Now we got Anderson.
And like 4 months ago. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel so bad for Uriah Hall because you get the whole situation where at the start of the year, you have that first COVID event, and he lives in his gym, so no one else is in contact with him, so he can get to the fight for Jacare. And they get to the hotel, and Jacare tests positive. They cancel that fight.
Oh.
And they go, okay, well, we're going to make it up to you, Yoel. I'm sorry, make it up to Uriah. So they give him the Yoel fight, and then that falls out, and then they move it farther back, and now you get the Anderson fight, which is a huge fight for him. But, man, how much bigger would a win over someone like Jacare or Yoel be for him than this
Absolutely.
fight? This fight's 5 years too late. Like, let's just be honest here.
It is.
Like, if he would have caught Anderson on the way down after he lost the belt, that would have even been better. But this fight's just too late.
I know a win over Anderson here doesn't really carry as much as it would have, but it's still something good for him. I think if he's got his head on, he should win this fight.
Yeah.
I imagine a pretty good striking display and a decision win by Uriah
Dude.
Hall, personally.
I'm going to put a personal little twist on this fight just because I'd love to see it. What if Anderson just comes out here and just puts on a masterclass to end his career?
I'd like that too. I like Anderson Silva.
Yeah, I've always liked Anderson.
Me
And,
too.
like, what if he just comes out and just looks great and just tips his cap and dips out?
That could easily happen. Problem is that, I mean, how old is he? 43, 44?
Yeah.
44, I think. He's old.
Uriah Hall is not the greatest fighter in the world, though.
Uriah Hall has a lot of potential, but he's erratic in the head. He can't really keep his mental game together in the past. And his game suffers greatly for it. But, I mean, he could put Anderson Silva to sleep if he's on point.
True.
I mean,
And vice versa.
we've seen Uriah Hall give one of the most ridiculous knockouts ever.
Yeah. It's
One of the few where I was legitimately like, I was
Worried.
worried
Yeah.
about the guy that got knocked
He
out.
was
Like
dead.
in
He
my
was dead.
stomach, I was like, oh no.
He said
Oh,
he looked
no.
dead. It was like, oh, he's dead.
I think he might have killed this motherfucker. Like, no joke, not hype.
Remember how silent that Ultimate Fighter
one said a
gym
word.
was?
Everybody was in
just,
shock.
oh God.
It was a thing.
Yeah.
It also seemed to have fucked up Uriah Hall. 'Cause he got scared to pull the trigger a little bit. I mean, he said it. He said, I don't want to hurt people. Dude, you're a fucking professional fighter,
Yeah,
dog.
sorry, bud.
Your whole job's to hurt people.
Yeah.
Maybe you shouldn't be doing this. But now he's got it back together again. I'd like to see him win, I guess. I'm not mad if I like Anderson. I'd like to see Anderson go out on a win, too.
Well, here's
I
the
don't know,
thing.
It's a cool fight.
This win for Uriah does a whole lot more than it does for Anderson. Anderson's out either way.
It doesn't. A win or a loss here doesn't do anything to Anderson Silva's career for the positive or the negative.
I mean,
just for nostalgia reasons, it's nice to go out with a win.
It would be nice. It would be nice if he came out and put on like a crazy performance, and that would put a little bit of something in people's head that like, just to remind you motherfuckers who forgot. You know,
Yeah.
I'm still Anderson Silva, and I'm out now. You know, that would be nice.
It'd be a fun fight, though.
I'm kind of hoping for that.
Like, I'm the fight I'm more excited about is the co-main event. Because I am a fan. We've got Andre Fili versus Thug Nasty Bryce Mitchell.
This is a good scrap.
I like Mitchell, man. I'm a fan.
I like Andre Fili, though, too.
Fili's pretty good, old touchy Fili. I hate his nickname, but I like his fucking fighting skills.
He's a badass.
But I don't know. I think Thug Nasty's got the it factor in a whole different way.
He does, but I feel like this is
different way.
This is like a stepping stone for him. Like he needs to have a great performance against a guy like Fili.
There's no crowd here.
Yeah. This is like two game motherfuckers who are going to throw down for sure.
Two gay motherfuckers?
Game.
Oh,
Jesus.
Okay. No, for real, though. This would be a great fight. I hope Thug Nasty comes out and gets a big win here and then says some fun shit on the microphone.
Yeah. At the same time, though, like I could see this fight having some like, this could be fight of the night. This should
be a great fight here. Fili's very talented, and Bryce Mitchell's he's a mean son of a bitch, and he's got some fighting skills.
It's like, how fucking
is he
long
gonna have his camo shorts?
I don't know.
I heard he got them.
Did he?
Fucking Reebok. They take forever to do shit. I hope Venom's already got a pair waiting.
Probably. Well, here's the thing: is like, how fucking long has Fili been in the UFC? Fucking 50 years? Like,
I mean, he fought fucking Artem.
Yeah, he's fought everyone.
I mean, but he was really young.
He's also fought like Max Holloway and
he
like
fights out of that Team Alpha Male.
Like,
he's good.
Great people. Yeah.
I think he's still young in the game, despite having been. He's only like 26. I
think so, 27, something like that. But yeah, this should be a good fight between two guys who are ready to throw down for sure.
There's Kevin Holland filling in at what 185 or 170?
185.
It's 185.
Yeah.
Short notice. I was kind of surprised by that. You know, he's coming off a fight in the last month.
Something about that.
Right in there, 5-6 weeks.
But it wasn't like nothing. Like, he didn't get fucked up at all. Like, he was pretty solid throughout the fight.
Excited to see him come in.
Oh yeah, he's always entertaining. He's one of those guys who, you know, he's another one of those, like, you know, who's maturing in the octagon before our eyes. You know, so it's like when you see guys like that, you kind of want to like. You'll see different parts of their game that just have improved so much that you don't even realize it. You know what I mean? When a guy fights this often.
Who's he fighting?
Oh, good question.
Is it Murado?
Murado. Something Murado.
Not familiar with that.
I'm not either. But
the fight was a little off the radar till Holland stepped in for me.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully he gets the win there just because I'm a fan of his.
Yeah.
There's another fight that's flying under the radar. For how they typically go with this guy, but Greg Hardy is finally, if anybody's been missing his dumb ass, he's finally coming back. Cue the boos from me, but he's fighting Maurice Green from the from the Tough show. I like him.
Yeah, I like Maurice Green too.
He's a funny guy.
He
dope, crochets.
He's a crocheter, dude.
And that's legit. He was doing it on the show.
Yeah.
And he's a guy, you want to talk about fighting and maturing a little bit. He's a guy that's maturing. If you saw him on Tough, I mean, he was fucking drinking beers the night before fights and shit. You know, he was a bit of a wild man. Not giving a fuck. But he's pulling it together. He's been looking all right. And I really hope he wins.
Real quick.
We say it repetitively. We haven't had to bring it up in a while because thankfully Remember at the start of this Fight Island shit, Greg Hardy was out there yapping his big dumb mouth about how he was going to go live on Fight Island and fight every week.
Yeah.
Thank God that didn't happen.
Yeah.
Like, he wasn't even there for the first iteration, and now he's barely. Well, he's not even there now. Actually, this fight's in Vegas, so we didn't see it at all.
Nope.
Oh God, thank God. They probably had some law that wouldn't allow his dumbass in there. He had to fight in Vegas.
Can't have felony domestic
But I'm hoping my
battery.
boy Mo Green comes in here and just please convincingly beat this guy.
Yeah.
Please. That's what I'm hoping for.
From Mo Green to Bobby Green, who's taking on Thiago Moises.
We haven't seen Bobby Green in a while down at.
Bullshit.
Is this at 155 or 145?
This is fifth fight this year.
Why don't I remember seeing him? Who was his last fight?
Remember,
am
he
I
fought,
just high?
He fought, yeah, you're high as hell, dude. Because remember when it came back, he fought on like 3 of the 4 Vegas like fight nights. Remember when the fight night Vegases were like 8 or 9 deep? He fought on like 2 or 3 of those.
You're right.
Crazy.
Just had a
bastard.
blank.
Just going blank, huh?
I had the marijuana blank spot for
Yeah,
Bobby
remember
Green.
when
Nothing
that dude-
personal, man.
When that wrestler dude got killed and
Yeah,
freaking,
yeah, and he made
yeah.
a tribute to him, the Iranian wrestler. You're right. That's right. Not only did he win the fight,
Yeah.
and then I remember that
think it's
that
his
was going
third or
down in
fourth fight
Iran.
this
They're
year.
going to kill that guy. And then Trump interceded on his behalf too,
Yeah.
and then no one gave a shit.
then
And they killed him.
killed.
And then Bobby Green found out about it
Yeah.
in the post-fight interview, and was
Yeah.
very upset and had to leave out of respect.
Leave. Yeah.
That's right. How could I forget that, dude?
Exactly.
Yeah.
bro.
So,
Come on.
because I really respected that. I was like, man, that's some shit right there. So,
Yeah, and then he fought.
yeah, good for him.
I think this is his 3rd or 4th fight this year, which is crazy
Well,
during the
there you go,
pandemic
man.
year. That's how you do it. That's how you do it.
I don't know much about Thiago Moses. Who's that?
I've seen him fight a few times. He's pretty good.
Is he a threat to Bobby Green? Bobby
I would
pretty
say so,
tough,
yeah.
Man.
I'm
All
still
right,
taking
well,
Green though. I like Green.
I'm hoping Green wins as a fan. I wouldn't bet the fight. I don't know nothing about his opponent, but I'm definitely hoping he wins.
Then you go down to the main event of the prelims. You got Alexander Hernandez coming back, taking on another tough alum, Chris Gutzmacher from the remember the Team Europe versus Team USA season.
Yeah, Chris
He
has
was-
got strong hands. He's
Yeah.
got a little bit of power, man.
He's good.
He knocked some fools out on the show. I remember.
Yeah, he's solid.
Yeah,
But
he's a solid fighter. But
Hernandez is he's
Alex
up.
Hernandez
He's
is-
had some ups and downs, but he's still like he's like sub elite ish. Like I don't know how to really.
I'd pick Hernandez here.
Yeah, I am too.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like Hernandez.
He's got a lot of
he-
potential still.
Exactly. Like
Yeah.
he has like flashes of like greatness in some of his fights, and then like he just kind of shits the bed sometimes.
Sometimes.
You know what I mean? When it comes to his bigger fights. Talking about someone who shits the bed, let's go ahead and move on from that, and let's talk about your boy.
My boy.
Yeah, he's your boy, bro. He's been your boy, Leon Edwards.
Oh, that ain't my boy. Leon Edwards, 170-pound welterweight, who used to fight in the UFC, right?
Well, let's just
Like years ago.
hold on. Let's just go over the. Well, okay. If you haven't heard, Khamzat Chimaev and Leon Edwards have agreed to fight, which is big. It's a good fight for
Leon
Khamzat.
Edwards is a ranked UFC welterweight. He just hasn't fought in a very long time.
Let's go through the timeline a little bit here. So you got Leon Edwards. He takes on RDA in Orlando. About a year and a half, almost 2 years.
Yeah, it was more
ago
than
now.
18 months ago.
Yeah. So then you have this situation with
He beats
COVID.
Rafael dos Anjos. Yeah,
Yeah,
then
he
COVID
beats-
comes in.
Well, not even necessarily that though, because let's even go farther back than that. When Usman and Masvidal were having problems and they couldn't agree on contract, remember the backup plan was Leon Edwards.
Yeah.
Leon Edwards was gonna fight Usman for the belt, and then everything happens, and then he ends up fighting Colby, and then ends up fighting Masvidal, and then Leon kind of gets left out in the cold. But then Leon turns into this guy who, I'm not accepting anything but the title shot kind of dude.
Yeah,
Where
Ariel
you were a
Helwani.
backup plan. You
Ariel
were
Helwani recently released a list of fights the UFC said that
that they've offered.
Leon turned
yeah.
down, and it was a solid list, including Woodley, Covington, Usman,
Usman,
Chimaev,
and
and
Stephen Thompson.
yeah.
Like, come on.
And so they're like, we're removing you from the rankings.
And then all of a sudden,
which is a power
comes-
move.
Yeah, super power.
A public power
Yeah.
move, because
Yeah. Because
you're not getting that title shot.
They
then if
usually
you're
never
removed from the
announce it.
rank.
They kind of just pull people.
Yeah, they just did it publicly. They said, we're going to remove you from the rankings.
Yeah.
Because you won't take fights.
Mm-hmm.
And Leon promptly said, I'll fight you, Chimaev.
So you got this situation kind of where Leon's been kind of backed into this corner, and he's either deciding, is he going to take the fight and risk it all?
Yeah, so now he's fighting the unranked
Like,
Swedish Chechen wrecking ball
Is he-
thus far.
I still don't even understand. Is he a middleweight or a welterweight? Like,
He's both. They won't
I don't really specify.
specify. Dana's down to let him fight at whatever. This fight's at 170 though, clearly.
Obviously, yeah.
This is a dangerous move for Leon Edwards. I mean, if he loses this fight now, he looks like a jackass too, and he's definitely going to go tumbling down the rankings.
Oh, yeah.
And he's going to have no fucking
He
pull.
won't be ranked at all.
No fucking pull with the UFC
Yeah.
or with fans.
Yeah.
Like, he played, in my mind, he played this all wrong over the past 18 months. He came off as really in as unattractive a way as possible to the fan base, and then did nothing to endear himself or even piss people off enough. People were just like, meh, fuck that. Meh.
Cool.
Meh.
Yeah.
Who?
Leon?
Eh?
He's
Yeah.
cool. Leon Scott?
Yeah. Oh. Leon what?
Yeah. Well, and I feel like he's kind of...
Well, then if he beats this guy, what does he get? They're like, yeah, this is fucking unranked.
Yeah. Well, I think he's ranked now.
Chimaev? No, he's not.
He's got to be.
He's not.
You sure?
Positive.
Yeah, but I'm talking like...
He will be if
knowing
he
the
wins this fight.
Knowing the UFC, he's probably ranked.
Oh, he might get ranked magically before, the fight. Yeah, but he's not right now. Like, in the rankings that came out this week, he's not there.
Oh, okay.
And after that last victory, he's not there.
Okay.
Which is rightfully. He shouldn't be. You've had 3 fights
I don't know,
against...
though. That was pretty
Meerschaert's
nasty.
a decent fighter, but he wasn't.
Knockout's pretty nasty. At least get him like a
If he goes and
15.
beats Edwards, though, they'll probably give this kid a title shot.
Shit, they might. With everyone, with how everything's gone, with like Usman, Covington, and Masvidal, how they've all been so reluctant to get to the table and just, get the fight signed. Like, it was so hard for both those fights to get signed. If you're the UFC, you're like telling this kid, like, hey, yeah, man, you do what you did to Meerschaert to Leon. We have no choice but to give you the title shot. Leon Edwards is the 3rd-ranked welterweight in the world. And Colby and Usman have both fought. Colby's already fought Usman, and Colby and what's his name? Masvidal's already fought Usman as well. And then
They're gearing up for that fight anyway.
and then they can't get the Gilbert fight to ever happen. So, like, it just always seems to fall out. So
there's something behind the scenes on that Burns Usman fight that we don't know about, but whatever.
I mean, yeah, probably. But yeah, so if you're a guy like Kamzat, this is huge for you.
Oh,
This is everything.
I can't believe Leon Edwards just capitulated like that. Like, bro, if you're gonna make a fucking stand, make a stand.
Well,
dude.
Stephen Thompson did. Stephen Thompson, they tried to do the same thing to him and try to go into the media and say, oh, well, he turned down the fight, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, yeah, because it does nothing for me.
Right.
Does nothing for him.
I don't know. I think Leon has continued to make a series of PR mistakes with his career, and this is just another one. And if he wins, then he'll just, I guess, maintain his ranking.
I guess so.
It's not going to get you any closer to a title shot than you were before you took the fight.
Yeah.
All you will have done is shut down a lot of the hype. And if he doesn't win, that might be as close as he ever gets to the title shot. You never know, man.
For real, for real.
You never
I
know.
think if he loses, he asks for his release from the UFC. That's my prediction.
He just might get it.
He might. I don't see why not.
Wouldn't blame him either.
Well, I think that wraps up our show for today.
I think so. I'm going to finish up this weed. Hope you all been smoking something good along the way. If you're brand new to the show, you can find our podcast anywhere you get your podcasts, from Spotify to Apple to Google. Video is up on YouTube. All of that information plus more is in one handy location.
SWATmma.com, where you can head over there, click our gear button, go ahead and buy yourself a t-shirt, a jacket. It's cold as shit outside, so, Get one of those.
See you next week, folks.
Peace.
Peace.